Brendan, I know the intro so well that I know you're talking to me, but I think since you plugged in the mic, you're either muted or it's not connecting well. I can't hear you, but I know exactly what you said. Still can't hear you.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Let's go. What if I was just playing you to see if you knew the intro?
I was reading your lips the whole time, just waiting for the how the heck you feeling, my man, so I knew I could start talking.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you know what? We're gonna leave that raw footage because that was quite hilarious. But Tyler, it's good to be back. We were busy the last month or so just with some personal life stuff. How have things been going for you?
Pretty good, man. Just hanging with the dogs. My wife's in New Orleans this weekend, so got a little solo time with the pups. I'm gonna surprise her by finishing the yard projects we got going on. Other than that, man, it's freaking freezing here in Colorado. It's not fun to be working outside right now, but last couple weeks just been kind of busy. Things are good. My team, man, in our main league is I feel like really, really good. I just kind of got a rough record, so I'm debating on going all in on some deals, trying to lock up another really solid player. And I
Mhm.
mean, your team gave me the scare with Fields blowing up, and then that early touchdown from Metcalf. It was like, man, this is going to get close.
I thought I had you, but you know what? It works out better for both of us. I probably need to keep losing since I'm rebuilding. You need to obviously keep winning. So since we haven't been recording the last few weeks, there's been a lot that has happened. A lot of players have blown up. Some players have been injured. Some players have disappointed. I think you already mentioned this guy. The first person we should start with is Justin Fields. I mean, as a Bears fan myself, being in Chicago, it's quite exciting to see his development. Even if the Bears lose, it feels like a Bears win if Justin Fields performs. He was looking electric against Miami.
Yeah, man. I think the important thing about Justin Fields is a little bit league dependent that, if you have bonuses for going over 100 yards rushing or, a point per 10-yard carry, some people have points per carry. I mean, I think it's very dependent that looking at Justin Fields' stats a little bit deeper, I mean, his passing yards are still a concern from a
Mhm.
fantasy standpoint, but obviously he's putting up touchdowns through the air, which kind of minimize the issues there. But I think fantastic asset moving forward. He's kind of like Lamar Jackson. Maybe he doesn't have the best passing, but his legs make him exceptional week to week. So
Mhm.
my biggest comment to anybody looking to move for him is make sure your league's got rushing upside, or he's definitely a little more capped.
Mhm. Yeah, it was
I
pretty
thought he was going to
amazing.
go over. I thought he was going to go over 200 yards on the ground last week. I really did.
Yeah, I mean, his yards per carry were pretty crazy. 15 attempts, 178 yards, one rushing touchdown, broke the single season rushing record for quarterbacks during the regular season. When we break down his stats, what jumps out is he's getting out of the pocket and he's on the move, picking up some good yards per attempt. The first few weeks, he was basically needing to rush the ball because either he was holding on to it too long or he was getting jammed up because of his offensive line. But what's changed is he's getting out of the pocket, or he's running between the gaps and he's creating space, which is a very, very good thing for quarterbacks in today's NFL. A lot of people have been upset saying like, "Oh, he's still not that good. The Bears still suck." Blah blah blah. What people don't realize, Justin Fields' stats right now are pretty on par, if not a little bit better, than Josh Allen's stats were through their first 19 games of their career. So he is on pace, in my opinion, to hit the development that Lamar Jackson has hit, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray before he's been just I guess, a little video gamer. But my point being is I think he's the real deal. People are starting to write him off as a first round pick in a Superflex Dynasty League. I think it might be a little premature, but I think he's on his way to that value. What are your thoughts on that? And what is he worth at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, his rushing is so important. That's what keeps Lamar Jackson huge. That's what, I mean, Allen's a little bit different because he does put up stats in both categories so well.
Mm-hmm.
But a rushing quarterback's huge. I mean, the games that Lamar or Fields, happens to throw 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then they put up another 100 and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, you're almost never going to lose depending on your settings and your scoring structure. But I mean, a lot of people don't remember it. Josh Allen was terrible his first year. He wasn't good at all. A lot
Very
of
inaccurate.
people, yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just look at Josh Allen where he is now. I mean, he was not good coming in. He was not good his first year. He needed a lot of coaching. I mean, he played for Wyoming, for God's sake. So it's not like he was a fantastic quarterback. He just had a huge arm, and he's put it together. And obviously, Fields has looked a lot better. I mean, Fields is also capped by his offense is terrible. I mean, he has no good receivers. I mean, everybody was very high on Darnell Mooney, but Darnell Mooney's not that good. David Montgomery's not that good. Herbert's probably the best player on that offense outside of Fields in reality. But Superflex, I mean, after the last couple weeks at 2 first plus, I mean, I don't know if anybody would pay that, but no reason to move him low. If he blows up again this weekend, has another 40, 50 point effort, depending on your settings, I mean, the sky's the limit. So I would still be interested in acquiring him in a 1 QB. I think right now in Superflex or 2 QB, it's just the wrong time from a trying to acquire standpoint. Yeah, I wouldn't bother right now. 1 QB, sure. I thought about hitting you up, but I just don't. I don't really have a QB I can move to bring one in for you. But I mean, in a Superflex 2 QB, it's not the right time. Wait for him. Maybe he has 2 rough weeks and everybody thinks, oh, he's terrible again. Then go try to get him, but trying to get him after, I mean, at least in our league, Brendan, where our scoring's a little bit heavy, but I mean, after a 53 point effort is not when you try to trade for somebody.
Yeah, I agree. Which people have to realize if you're trying to buy him, most likely the owner that has him on their roster probably drafted him and they stuck with him his entire rookie campaign, realized he hasn't developed. They stuck with him the first 6-7 weeks of the 2022 season. And it's like people get upset. So when people come to offer even overpays for certain players, like especially really young players, what some people seem to forget is like, hey, I spent the 102 on Kenneth Walker, right, before he blew up. And I was getting offers of like a 2024 first round pick, right? Why would I do that? First off, I drafted him where I drafted him. Like I drafted Fields in the 1 quarterback league, like the 108 or 109 or whatever. Yeah. So people seem to forget, that every owner obviously values their players a lot higher than I'm sure everyone else. But in order to obtain these types of guys, you have to hit the proper window. But most likely with super young players who have shown they can play, you're going to have to overpay. I mean, it's just the way it is because there's no reason to give up a guy that you've been holding, waiting for him to, hit the potential that you were hoping he'd hit. So I will trade Justin Fields. I'll trade literally anybody. But at a certain point, with how difficult it is to get a quarterback in that league, with how early I took him in that round in the 2022 draft, it would take a whole lot, and it doesn't make sense. It's like you with your players, you're way more willing to trade your running backs to go get those young Alabama receivers. And then when you have those Alabama receivers, even if they don't perform, you still probably won't want to move them for fair value, like Jerry Jeudy. Why would you? You've been waiting on him to blow up. So that's what I think a lot of people forget, and they get frustrated. A lot of people get frustrated with me when they send an overpay and like I decline. But I don't think I'm wrong for that. I trade based on when I feel like it's a good enough return.
Yeah, and I mean everybody struggles to move their pieces in Dynasty because we've all made trades in the past where you're like, I can't believe I traded that guy for this. You don't want to do it again. And in reality, Brendan, I say it a lot on forums. Almost every single trade is an overpay. When people are like, what's this guy worth? And he's not even that good. It's usually a late second. I mean, almost everybody outside of being really not good is worth a second or more. It's the marketplace in Dynasty is tough because, yeah, everybody, you have to overpay to get pretty much anybody, and a lot of leagues don't really even trade that much, period. Ours is a little unique in the sense that, we usually have 10 a year, which for some leagues is not much, but some leagues have had, 10
Two.
trades in 6 years,
Yeah.
So, and the deeper and deeper and deeper you get into your leagues, like obviously we're a decade in, people value their players more and more and more. And, the market is so skewed and always like organically changing that, like you're saying, even in a one QB format right now, Fields in our league based on values, a first plus, a good player, is not unreasonable. I'm sure people listening in one QB leagues are like, that's absurd. It's not in our league, it's very
Yeah.
league dependent. So that's why as I try to help people as much as I can when they're like, oh, what's this guy worth? What should I trade this guy for? And it's so league dependent that it makes it tricky, I mean, I'm not going to say our main league is super flex values of QBs. I think
Dude,
that's a
it's close,
little,
man.
it's
It's like
close.
it's
Yeah.
like 1.5. It's like if there was a
Yeah, it's close,
1.5
man.
QB value.
Yeah, it's close. And some managers in our league are more willing to accept maybe more fair value for a QB and others just aren't. So, any league, your market is based solely on your league. So it's really tough to value players league to league. It really is.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why when you have the stud, keep them. We're looking
Yeah.
at some of these NFL teams that traded a lot of their stud, well, their stud receivers, and look, the stud receivers are balling out, and it's leaving teams like Green Bay and Tennessee. They're losing games because they don't have a stud receiver. So
Yeah.
you flip that into a fantasy perspective. Studs are hard to get, and if you're going all in, you got to keep them or you got to pay up for them. If not, sell them, get some good value, or hold on to them when you're ready to contend. One last note on Justin Fields. I've been getting a lot of offers. I own him in so many leagues, like
I bet.
3 or 4 leagues. Yeah, he's my dude. He's my dude.
Yeah.
Somebody hit me up immediately after that big performance, and their offer, it's still on the table. I mean, I'm gonna probably decline it, but it's a super flex league. It's currently Justin Fields for Mac Jones, a mid 2023 first and a mid 2023 second. I don't think that's enough. Do you?
I don't see the point to make that trade, really. I mean, Mac Jones is fighting for his job with Bailey Zappi. I mean, Jones has been a massive letdown this year. A mid first, I mean, you're probably in super flex because you're trading a quarterback and getting a very risky quarterback back. You're almost going to force taking a quarterback with that pick. I don't see the point. I honestly don't think that's close at all. If Mac Jones is averaging 25 points a game, sure, it's probably much different. But Mac Jones, you could say, has arguably been the most disappointing second-year asset in Dynasty, maybe outside of Zach Wilson. But
yeah,
yeah,
the difference is Zach Wilson's outlook is so much brighter based on the people that he has surrounding him. I mean, the Jets, for a while, when they start winning games, when a bad team starts winning games, you start thinking, nah, they're not the real deal yet. They're not the real deal. But their defense is really solid at the moment. But their offense is coming along with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall at the time. Mac Jones doesn't really have that. I don't think he has really any support. So there's really no room for him to grow.
Yeah, Stevenson's their only good offensive player, really. I mean, Jacoby Myers has been solid, but it's all volume based.
He's a good flex guy. I like Jacoby Myers a lot, actually.
Yeah, great player for an all-in run if you need a flex help. But yeah,
Yeah,
getting back to your deal, Brendan, no, I don't think that's honestly close at all. I don't think that's a very competitive offer. Just
good.
because Mac Jones, he can be replaced, man. Fair or not, I can understand if you're trying to trade Mac Jones, your argument is going to be his job is safe. But if you're getting Mac Jones, you're going to be looking at that completely opposite. He could easily be replaced. Bailey Zappi has maybe been better than him.
Hmm. Oh, he was
And then,
electric during I think he came in during the Bears game.
yeah, he
He
was
was
great.
electric, man, his first few
Yep.
plays.
And
So who
they've
knows?
and they've done the least Patriot thing ever, and they've substituted them both in throughout the game
It's
since they've
crazy.
both been healthy. So
And they've been sticking primarily to one running back, which is absolutely mind-blowing.
Stevenson's a beast, man. Stevenson has been phenomenal.
So I think based on this conversation, some takeaways here, even though the Patriots aren't very good, two guys that you should go hit up if you need cheaper depth, Ramondre Stevenson, because he's a little bit older and he's not on a good offense, and Jacoby Myers. Honestly, I think both of those guys can be obtained for a little bit less than, some bigger names. So that's
Yep.
basically the takeaway here. I would not want to own anybody else on the Patriots. Let's move on. So before the show started, we were kind of talking about some players that maybe are at the top of the leaderboard so far, and maybe they're a little bit more surprising than others. Right now, I have the list of wide receivers pulled up. Numbers, top five, we got Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Jay Jettas, Jalen Waddle. Then you move into Devontae Adams. Like Jamar Chase is still ranked really high, even though he's missed the last few weeks. Those guys aren't that surprising. I mean, you drafted these guys with high draft capital, or you paid up to get them. So totally understandable that they're up there. But once we get to kind of like the 10 to 15 range, this is where it gets a little funky. I sorted this based on total points so far this season. At number 9, we have Amari Cooper. At number 10, we have Tyler Lockett. At number 12, we have Christian Kirk. Number 13, Tyler Boyd. Those are some players that you most likely could have obtained for a second round pick, and you have a borderline wide receiver one this year. Should we change our methods preseason and our strategies on how to obtain depth to take the shot at these guys and pay a low price before they blow up? Or is it worth, like Tyler Boyd? I probably would have paid only a third round pick for him. Is it worth spending that third round pick and getting lucky? Or do you just hold? How easy is it to predict these players? I don't know, man. It's crazy to me that a lot of these guys are borderline wide receiver ones right now.
Yeah, I think Christian Kirk was the most obvious just because of how much money he was paid. He was going to be a team's number one, regardless if your team is great or not. You're going to get number one targets. I think Lawrence has made a jump, but maybe not the jump many were hoping. But he's been much, much better than last year. So obvious, I think Kirk was a fairly safe bet to hinge that maybe he wouldn't be top 15, but top 25 for a cheaper price makes a lot of sense. Tyler Boyd, no, I don't think you could have seen that. A lot of that is due to Chase missing time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he had 40 points or something in the one game that first game he missed. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at his stats, it's heavily influenced by one or two games. Obviously, his rank is what it is, but I also think that speaks to how far down scoring is overall in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You got a couple guys in dynasty or fantasy that have two big games, and all of a sudden they've jumped so far up the leaderboard that you think they're having a miraculous season. So I think it's kind of a combo of scoring is extremely down in the NFL this year. I think I read it's almost 600 points through 9 weeks. That's a lot of points. So it's extremely down, which obviously is trickling into fantasy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure most people see that their leagues are, you score 100 points anymore and you're a pretty good team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas 100 used to be kind of a decent benchmark. But Tyler Lockett's always been consistent. He's never exciting. I mean, I shouldn't say he's not exciting. He is an exciting player because he stretches the field, but he's not an exciting asset.
Mm-hmm.
People would move him as a throw in or, give me an early second, I'll do it. But no, I don't think he was very obvious either, because we all worried Geno Smith was going to be terrible. You know,
He's a stud.
we worried Metcalf was going to be awful, and Metcalf's been more consistent this year than he was last year. So
Mhm.
I think Christian Kirk was obvious, but the other guys not so much. Another guy that comes up for me, Chris Olave's got to be kind of close in that mix.
He's number 14.
Okay. Another, I mean, obviously you drafted him probably mid first or later. Obviously, you invested
Mhm.
heavily in him, but he was another one that maybe you didn't see coming, but you probably should have, because we all knew Michael Thomas was can't stay on the field. Michael Thomas doesn't want to play football, you know, despite his tweets and his articles. Michael Thomas got paid $100 million and he's good, you know. He
Mhm.
hasn't played much at all in 3 years. Like, either your body is completely got away from you or you're just not that interested, you know. It's not worth, I'm not criticizing Thomas at all, it's not worth lifetime of pain to continue to play when you've already made a hundred
Dude,
million dollars you
it's
know.
his toe, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I read something really funny. It was like a tweet. It said Brian Robinson got shot 4 times, missed 4 games. Michael Thomas has missed his 5th game with a toe injury. You know, it's just
God.
kind of like, I think honestly, Thomas, to me, just it's not worth the lifetime of physical pain. He's never going to be able to spend the money he's made. He
Mhm.
had a stretch where he was arguably one of the best receivers in the history of the NFL for 3, 4 years.
Gosh, he was catching everything, man.
Oh, he was unbelievable. He didn't care. He's good.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So
a
yeah,
very funny point.
Olave might have been a little bit more obvious if you really thought about Thomas, but at the same time, if you didn't have the draft capital, you couldn't get Olave.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. Him and Garrett Wilson are looking like the 1 and 2 so far this year for
yep.
rookie wide receivers. So it'll be pretty fun to see how it plays out. I'm excited for Jamison Williams to come back. Hopefully, he's not a type of player that just has a lingering injury, because it's always very discouraging to see reports coming out. Oh, he might be good to go. Oh, he's game time decision. Oh, they're sitting him this week. I don't
Yeah.
like when they string along the injuries. It should be more like clear cut, like, hey, they're in or they're out. So that's how I personally feel. Tyler, let's move on just for the sake of time. Let's do some stardom sit-ums. I got some running backs picked up right here. Obviously, my strategy is to always roster a lot of starting running backs because they are more difficult to come across during the season. But obviously, you might come across a situation where you simply can't start all of your guys. So stardom sit-em, the first two I have. Would you rather start Jamal Williams against Chicago or Miles Sanders against Washington?
I'd probably roll Sanders. It's always nice to have a guy going on Monday night, in fantasy, whether people think about that or not. It's kind of always nice to have a guy in your back pocket just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, when does Swift start to get more carries? It's very concerning that he's still kind of being monitored. I don't know what's going on with Swift at this point, but just in case Swift is fully healthy this week or gets a big workload, I would rather play Sanders pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. Sanders has been a back end running back one. There's no reason not to play him, honestly.
I just tried to trade for him, so
Yeah, there you go. I think his value has increased since last year. That's for sure. I think it'll be exciting to see what the Eagles do with his contract. I think he could excel if he goes to a different roster. So we'll see what happens. Next up, we've got Khalil Herbert against Detroit or Jeff Wilson against the Browns.
well, that's kind of a tough one, huh? Because I guess neither one of them really are starting running backs. So,
No, but they
technically
kind of
that's,
feel like the
yeah,
RB1 for their team. Isn't that weird?
I, man, if I had to gamble, I'd probably gamble on Herbert. I mean, he's been so good. He just needs more touches. I mean, you're a born and raised Chicago native, so I don't know what the coaching staff sees anymore that Montgomery continues to be their lead back. Montgomery's just not good.
Mhm.
Herbert's way better. So at some point, even if it's in game, I expect Herbert to just kind of take that role, even if it's just for a game. You know, if Montgomery has his usual 8 rushes for 10 yards or something, and Herbert's had 7 for 62, you know, maybe he's their lead back the rest of the game. So I would bank on Herbert there,
I kind
but
of feel
certainly
like,
could go either way.
oh, absolutely. I think Herbert's a safer floor. Wilson is a higher ceiling just because San Fran's offense, or he's not on San Fran. I'm sorry, Miami's offense is a little more potent. That's crazy
Yep.
that he's on Miami now, and Mostert. That's wild. I like that. I like the opportunity there. To piggyback off the David Montgomery thing, you know, obviously I don't know what goes inside the coaches' heads, but I almost kind of feel like they play Montgomery just out of respect. Like, he's still okay. Like, let's be honest, like, he's not terrible, but he maybe they're trying to keep his value up, hopefully to trade him in the offseason, or I think he's coming along his 3rd or 4th year. So I think his rookie contract's up pretty soon. But additionally as well, you know, why does Dallas still play Zeke? You know, I think they just paid their dues.
And some of it comes down to blocking. You know, Zeke's a good blocker, and maybe David Montgomery's a good blocker. You know, you don't want Justin Fields getting creamed, so maybe Herbert doesn't block as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I talk about that all the time when we're doing our draft prep. I tell people all the time, if a running back can't block in college, I don't care how good they are, they're not playing in the NFL.
Yep.
You
Yep.
got to be able to block. So maybe that plays into it with Herbert. I don't know him well enough to know if he's a good blocker or not.
Yep. It seems like he will be the lead back going into next year, though. That's my prediction.
You would think so.
Yep.
Yeah, you would think so.
We'll see what happens. They'll probably draft a late round running back, maybe like round 4 or something like they normally do. But yeah, I think Herbert's pretty much going to be the guy there. Let's do a quarterback matchup here. This one's fun. This one's fun. We'll stick with the Detroit theme here. Jared Goff against the Bears, or Derek Carr against the Colts?
I'd rather play Carr. I like his weapons better.
Sure.
Obviously, you know, you saw it last week when he's clicking with Devontae Adams, you know, the touchdowns just pile up. So I'd pretty easily play Carr.
Sure. It's weird that their record is so bad. They've blown like 4 games being up like 2+ touchdowns. So
It's just the Raiders, man. They're just not good.
yeah, I'm sure Adams wishes he was still in Green Bay, because I'm sure if he was, Packers would have a couple more wins themselves. So
Jeez, hard to say.
yeah, it's crazy. It's being a Bears fan, you know, being dominated by Brett Favre and then basically right into Aaron Rodgers for the last like 25 years, 30 years. It's been very refreshing, although very mysterious in the sense that it's very odd to see this type of thing happen within my lifetime. It's the first, right? That our quarterback might be better than the Packers quarterback currently. So it is a great time to be alive in the NFC North. All right, one last one real quickly.
Looks terrible.
He looks bad. He looks like he's ready to maybe call it. Yeah. Last one. Let's do TJ Hawkinson against the Bills, or Dallas Goedert against Washington.
That's a tough one because Hawkinson was very involved, looked very good in his first game, but wow, really tough call.
Obviously, I think you got to roll Hawk, brother.
Yeah, I mean, Goddard has been very, very solid all year, but, you know, when games where A.J. Brown and or Smith are getting all the targets, he obviously takes a back seat. I think Goddard has a safer floor until we see if what happens last week with Hawkinson is typical or not. You know, maybe they just wanted to get him heavily involved. Maybe it was just the way it worked out. I would lean Goddard, but I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just think his floor is
a little bit
safer. But again, I mean, Hawkinson's on a brand new team. It might finally, maybe this is finally what Hawkinson needed to become the asset that a lot of people thought he would be. So maybe, I'm not going to say last week is his floor, but maybe his floor is similar to Goddard's moving forward. But until we see that, I would play it a little bit safe. I mean, if you're favored by, you know, not that projections matter, but if you're the top team and you're playing the worst team in your league who's averaging 60 points and you're averaging 130, yeah, go with the upside of Hawkinson. But if it's a close matchup, I'd take the floor.
Perfect. Tyler, excellent choices. That is all today, folks. We are out of time. Just remember, you're in this.